There is a type of man who gets rejected before he even opens his mouth. He's not rude, he's not aggressive. In fact, most people would describe him as polite, even kind. But the moment he walks into a room, something shifts. People pull back, conversations get shorter, invitations stop coming, and he never knows why. And that's the most brutal part. The rejection is invisible. There's no moment he can point to, no phrase he said wrong, no specific mistake he can go back and fix. It just happens, over and over again. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 6 exact behavioral patterns that cause certain men to be disliked without doing anything obviously wrong. And pattern number 5 is the one nobody ever talks about, but it's present in the vast majority of these cases. This isn't therapy. It isn't motivation. This is cold, precise observation of how social rejection actually works. Through mechanisms most people cannot see with the naked eye. Here's what makes this so hard to solve. The social rejection these men generate has no clear trigger. It isn't one moment. It isn't one comment. It isn't one bad day. It's accumulative. It builds silently over dozens of small interactions until people just stop wanting to be around them. And because there's no single cause they can identify, they can never fix it. So they keep doing the same things, being nice, being available, trying harder, and the results keep getting worse. Everything I'm about to describe is not a character flaw. These are survival patterns. They were probably learned for a reason at some point in life, but in the context of adult social dynamics, they produce the exact opposite of what was intended. The first pattern is what I call invisible overcompensation. These men don't dominate conversations. They don't brag. What they do is something far more subtle. They add one extra thing when they shouldn't. They tell a joke. The joke lands, and then they explain it. They make a point. The room gets it, and then they clarify it anyway. They say something that worked, and then immediately say a second version of the same thing as if the first one didn't count. It's like they can't let a moment land and breathe. There always has to be something more. Here's the psychological reality behind this. The human social brain is constantly scanning for signals of status and insecurity. And one of the clearest signals it reads is whether someone needs the room's approval to feel okay, or whether they're comfortable without it. When you add an unnecessary word, explanation, or follow-up, you're signaling that you're still waiting for the room to confirm that you are good enough. And the room feels that, not consciously, but it registers. The strange irony is that many of these men are genuinely accomplished, stable careers, real achievements, lives that look fine from the outside, but there's a disconnect between their real-world value and their perceived social value. And that gap creates a kind of noise that other people sense without being able to name. Here's the rule that changes everything. Social value is communicated through restraint, not volume. The man who can stay silent at the right moment carries more weight than the man who always has something to add. Silence signals confidence. Constant speech signals need. And the social brain interprets need as weakness, not consciously, but irreversibly. The second pattern goes completely beyond words. You can't hear it, but you feel it the moment someone walks into a room. It's what I call apologetic energy, a way of being present that constantly communicates, "I'm sorry for taking up this space." It's the man who adjusts his posture the moment someone more dominant enters the room, who lowers his voice depending on who's listening, who reformulates what he just said when it doesn't get an immediate reaction, not because he was unclear, but because he didn't get instant validation. The body never lies. People read your body before they process a single word you say. And when your body is constantly negotiating its right to exist in a space, other people pick up on it and respond by deprioritizing you. This isn't cruelty on their part. It's social efficiency. The brain economizes attention. It naturally allocates more to those who seem certain they deserve it. What does that look like? Posture that doesn't shift based on who enters the room. Eye contact that doesn't break immediately under pressure. A presence that doesn't shrink or expand depending on the audience. The underlying message that apologetic energy sends is devastatingly simple. I'm not sure I have the right to be here. And groups respond to that message with quiet, unconscious exclusion. If you don't believe you belong somewhere, don't expect anyone else to believe it either. Not because people are cruel, but because they're taking their cue directly from you. The third pattern is the one that confuses people the most because it should logically produce the opposite effect. In theory, this behavior should make someone more likable. In practice, it destroys their social standing. It's unlimited availability. These are the men who are always free. They respond instantly. They adapt to any plan. They never have a conflict. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, they're there. And that, counterintuitively, communicates one thing: that nothing in their life competes with other people's attention. Nobody consciously thinks this person must have nothing going on. But the social brain interprets unlimited availability as scarcity of options. And scarcity of options signals low value. These men genuinely believe they're being generous, loyal, caring, good friends. But the mechanism works against them because social respect in the real world doesn't get distributed equally. It concentrates around those who appear to have alternatives. The person who occasionally says, "I can't make it," occupies more mental space than the person who always says yes. Not because rejection creates mystery, but because selectivity communicates that you have priorities. And having priorities signals that you are a person worth having priorities about. You don't earn social respect by being useful. You earn it by being selective. Not cold, not strategic. Just someone whose time means something because it isn't given to everyone. Freely, always, without condition. The fourth pattern operates in microseconds, but it's detected instantly. It's reactive laughter. Some men laugh when others laugh. Fast, loud, and without filter. Not because they necessarily found something funny, but because they detected that the group was laughing, and they needed to be part of it. The problem is that reactive laughter has a tell. A micro delay that doesn't match genuine amusement. A slightly forced tone. A duration that outlasts the actual joke. And other people pick up on all of it without being able to say exactly what felt off. Real laughter is a neurological event. Fake laughter is a performance. And the human brain evolved to distinguish between the two with remarkable precision, even when it can't articulate the difference. When someone laughs to belong, it triggers subtle rejection because the group, at a subconscious level, registers that this person is misrepresenting their internal emotional state in order to fit in. And misrepresenting basic emotions, even small ones, creates distrust. Nobody consciously thinks that laugh was fake. I can't trust this person, but the pattern accumulates. And over time, people start feeling vaguely uneasy around someone without knowing why. These men aren't trying to deceive anyone. They've simply over-adapted their emotional responses to match the people around them. They learned that laughing when others laugh creates connection, but they lost the filter that keeps it authentic. And authenticity, once lost in micro-interactions, is very hard to recover. The fifth pattern is the one that almost never gets mentioned, and it's the most common. It's called anticipatory justification, and it's serious. These men justify decisions that nobody questioned. I ordered this because I hadn't eaten since morning. Nobody asked. I didn't go to that thing. It was a Wednesday, and I had an early start Thursday. Nobody was wondering. I got this car because the other option was actually more expensive in the long run. Nobody was judging the car. The explanations keep coming for choices that were never under scrutiny. What's actually happening underneath is a permanent internal negotiation with an imaginary jury. These men are constantly anticipating judgment that isn't there and defending themselves against attacks that haven't happened. And so, they preemptively defend. Automatically. Compulsively. This creates two effects in the people around them. First, it draws attention to the very thing being justified. If you explain why you ordered a salad, people now wonder why a salad requires an explanation. You created a question that didn't exist before you spoke. Second, and this is the fatal one, it communicates that you don't trust your own judgment. And if you don't trust your own judgment, there is no reason for anyone else to trust it either. Social authority doesn't explain itself. It assumes itself. The moment you start justifying unprompted, you've already communicated that your actions require external validation to be valid, and nobody gives authority to someone who is constantly asking permission to have it. The painful truth behind this pattern is a distorted sense of how much attention other people are actually paying. People are far less focused on your choices than you think. They have their own lives, their own problems, their own internal noise. But when you justify everything, you make yourself the center of an attention that was never actually there. The sixth pattern is perhaps the most painful because it involves men who are genuinely trying to do the right thing. It's performed kindness. These are the men who give compliments that land hollow, who agree with things they don't believe to avoid conflict, who volunteer help before anyone asks, not because they want to be useful, but because they're trying to manufacture a reason to be valued. The intention is real, the generosity is real, but the group feels the mechanism underneath, and it creates friction. Why? Because performed kindness has a hidden cost attached to it. When someone is kind in a way that clearly expects something in return, even if that something is just approval, just belonging, just being liked, it stops being kindness and starts being a transaction. And social groups are remarkably good at detecting transactions that aren't being disclosed. True generosity doesn't announce itself. It doesn't position itself for reaction. It doesn't linger to see if it was noticed. It simply acts and moves on. These men aren't manipulative. They're trying to earn their place. But the very act of trying that hard signals that they don't already have it. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Here's what connects all 6 of these patterns. None of them are evil. None of them are stupid. Every single one makes sense as a response to something. A difficult environment, an early experience, a lesson that worked in one context and got carried into another where it no longer applies. But adult social dynamics are unforgiving in one very specific way. They don't reward your intention. They respond to your signal, and the signal that all 6 of these patterns broadcast, no matter how different they look on the surface, is exactly the same. I am not certain I belong here. I need you to confirm it for me. Groups don't confirm belonging. They extend it, or they don't. And they extend it to those who already seem to have it. The solution isn't to fake confidence. It isn't to become cold, aloof, or impossible to reach. It's to understand why these patterns exist and to stop letting the old habit of seeking approval override the behavior of someone who no longer needs to seek it. The shift isn't about becoming a different person. It's about getting out of your own way. If any of this resonated, even one pattern, sit with that, not as a judgment, as information, because awareness is the only place real change starts. You can't fix what you can't see. If this gave you something, subscribe. I cover social dynamics, behavioral psychology, and the invisible mechanics of human interaction, the kind of content nobody teaches you, but that shapes everything. See you in the next one.